This is TWiT.
Apple is talking to Foxconn and others, Pegatron, another supplier, about moving production out of China as China gets more uncertain as the trade war goes on. And in fact, a Biden presidency will not change that, according to Bloomberg. They're talking about moving to anywhere but China's, India, Southeast Asia, the Americas, Foxconn. Apparently, because not only politics, but also China's getting more expensive. Maybe that's tariffs. But Vietnam and India are proving competitiveness. I wish they would look at opening plants in the U.S. I really do. I don't know why they don't.
Well, a couple of things. So first of all, this is part of a longer trend that's been accelerated by the coronavirus. People are realizing that consolidating everything in one country is super risky, and that you want not just to get out of China, but to be in multiple locations.
Diversify.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a little more expensive, but one of the reasons China is getting more expensive is simply because there is a saturation among their workforce. It's actually difficult now to hire qualified people in China. And so the wages are going up in China. China is emerging as an economic power, and wages go up. So this is just part of the normal. This is one of the beautiful things about capitalism. It takes a very poor country, raises them up,
and then
feeds
moves
a
out.
lot more people, and then they move out because they have all, and then they become, they consultants or whatever. You talk about the Americas, specifically the two most likely places in the Americas are Brazil and Mexico, great places for manufacturing. The United States is a horrible place for manufacturing. Americans make way too much money and are way too entitled to do this kind of factory work. I mean, you have to have a super motivated and yet super educated and yet relatively low paid workforce in order to do the kind of factory work that China set the mold for. And Americans just don't want to do that stuff.
They just want to get paid for it. They just want to get paid for it. What you just said, that kind of stuff makes me really mad, because they want to pay these people nothing and have to put nets up on their buildings so people don't jump out of their windows, making Nikes and phones and all this kind of stuff, paying them nothingness. So let's move to another country where people have nothing, work them to the bone and give them nothing. So we would do the work here. People used to build cars here and build everything here, but we also care about our environment. We care about the waste that goes into our water system and how our kids are going to survive. But we're sure happy to go send it off to China, fog up their things, have them wear a mask 10 years before everybody else, and now move it on down to another country. So, I mean, there's just grand scope on this whole Americans don't want to do the job thing. We want to do the job. We want it done properly. We want it done right for the ecosystem, and we want to get paid for that money, because we got to have the profits. This shoe only cost you $13, Nike, bought, sold, and shipped, but we only paid the person 30 cents a day. Now we're going to sell this shoe for $250. Hopefully hits the opposite market and goes for $1,000. So again, I'll shut up again, but that's
well, we don't want. I will hold the line on environmental impact, but I think Americans understand that a product made in America might cost a little bit more. You think Americans are unwilling to pay it? Is it our fault?
Yeah, it's Owen's fault.
It's Owen's fault.
It's Owen's fault.
The profit.
Here's why.
The profit.
No, again, you won't even buy a Mac that is already made with sweatshop labor at minimum cost. You won't even pay that price. So wait do you buy that MacBook Pro that's made in California? It's going to cost you $5,000.
If I was paid a better living wage, it'd be easier for me to afford the hike that's going to come up on this also. The fact that wages haven't gone up in the last 20 years and people are fighting and complaining about that, keeping most average Americans in poverty making under $34,000 a year is the problem. Buying this phone is not the issue. I could buy this phone all day. My daughter's got an iPhone 11 Pro, 256 gig. I dropped $1,300 on my kids. So a lot of people can afford a phone, a one-time purchase. But if you're making more money, you can afford the cost and what uptake for that if you didn't have to have the greed and the money you're making. Bezos out here in the pandemic making $1 billion, won't give people 2 weeks sick leave when they get corona, so it runs rampant through their system. You're going to give somebody a $300 bonus. You could give somebody $1,000 or $10,000. It wouldn't hurt your bottom line one bit. Your wife took half and you still out here balling. But it's not about that. It's not about taking care of the people. It's about greed and profits and stocks. So again, America would do the job if we were properly paid for the job and the job was done the right way. But we have politicians, we have people paying money to hide their money overseas. They don't even want to pay taxes. There's a whole other issue besides Americans not wanting to do a job that they should do if they got paid properly for it.
There's an advantage also in China. Part of it is, the Chinese workers get $100 a week. So that's certainly a part of it. There's also an advantage because you've got areas where everything is made. It's quick to ship. You could do just-in-time production. They've created regions. In other words, there's a logistic advantage to manufacturing in China. That's why I find it interesting that Wistron, Pegatron, Foxconn, they're all thinking about moving out of China because a lot of the suppliers are still going to be in China. I guess they're also in Taiwan and they're also in Korea. That's part of it. There was a study, I think a year ago or 2 years ago, that said a made-in-America iPhone would cost $2,000. So
$1,500 more? I mean, $500?
Yeah, $500 more.
$900, yeah. Exactly.
Or $900. This is from a while ago. So Tim Beharon did the estimate.
But to my point, if I was making better money, a $500 hike or $1,000 hike wouldn't matter to me because my wages would go up.
Right.
So again, it's always the thing of I'm a small business owner, so I know the complaint of not wanting to pay people and the price you could pay people. So I do know there's a threshold for that, but it's really the biggest scam in the world to act like you can't afford to pay people. And the prices of everything's going to go up. Yeah, but your wages went up, bro.
Well, but Owen,
5 cents a loaf.
The question, I don't think the question is if you can afford to pay people a certain amount. There has to be a motivation to do it. So if you're a company competing with other companies and you have the choice to have something manufactured in China, like everything is manufactured in China, or manufactured in the United States, you're either going to price yourself out of the market or you're not. And if you price yourself out of the market, you go out of business, and therefore companies that are willing to pay for U.S. wages don't exist because they go out of business because their prices are too high. So we have to,
if they're competing with other companies making in cheaper places, I guess you're right.
Yeah,
if Nike can sell a pair of shoes for $100, you're not going to buy the $300 one that are made locally, right?
I mean,
right.
They do.
Unless you're buying them from Kanye West, who has the sneakers manufactured for $5 and sells them for $900.
Yeah. Actually, price is elastic. We know it because people will pay a premium for the wrong reason, not because it's made in America, but because a celebrity has endorsed it. Yeah.
And that's what
I would love to see people embrace the concept of the boycott for real. So if people, if the consumer public stopped buying things based on this thing is the cheapest thing you can buy, then everything would change. But that's not the case. Like look at airlines, for example. Airline flying used to be awesome, and now it's horrible. Why? Because people just go and buy the cheapest ticket. They don't buy based on what has the best food or the best service or the nicest people or whatever. And so to cut back to meet the actual demand of actual consumers, they have to make everything cheap and horrible. And that's exactly what happens in manufacturing. People buy based on the lowest price, and therefore things are manufactured in sweatshop conditions. And in China, increasingly by literally slave labor. Where they're using these Uyghurs, they round up by the millions based on the fact that they're Muslims, and they put them into forced labor situations. They're major American corporations that are actually having things manufactured by slaves, basically, and nobody gives a crap, And I think we should all, as consumers, like do a reset and say, let's buy the stuff that is where the people working in the factory are making a living wage, where there's no exploitation, and so on, and that will create a market for humane manufacturing, whether it's in the U.S. or otherwise.
It's ironic because there is a bill in Congress aimed at preventing forced labor in China. It's the Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act, which would require U.S. companies to guarantee they do not use imprisoned or coerced workers from the Uyghur majority, the Muslim minority in Xinjiang. And apparently, according to the Washington Post, Apple is actually lobbying against this. It's
of course they are.
Yeah. Apple, of course, which makes a lot of hay about saying, no, we do everything we can to make sure that the workers are treated humanely and they're paid fairly. But
and they have only the best suicide nets.
Yeah, only the best. So now, this is an unsourced. It's the staffers, congressional staffers familiar with the matter, talking on the condition of anonymity, said that Apple was one of many U.S. companies that oppose the bill as it's written.
I just want to list two more scams real quick. Mike, you're right. The quicker way to just have peace on earth would just be to take money out of politicians' pockets and not being able to fund the lobbyists and do that stuff. If we did that, we'd have a lot more fair system. And the other scam I want to talk about with Apple is they run that stupid commercial and tell me, oh, the box is thinner and we're going to help the environment by not putting a power brick in the box because there's already 1 million power bricks inside the ecosystem.
They're taking 55,000 cars off the road.
And yes, and inside this box with this phone is a cable that goes to a USB-C. Mind you, that every phone previous to this had a USB power brick to it. So you still
got to buy a new one.
Power brick. And they just lied to you to make it because we care about the environment. Right. We're going to save 400,000 trees by not giving you something we're still going to charge you $35 for, America.